Puppy dog look,
An innocent gaze.
dripping with subtextual guilt.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Marvel's two greatest shapeshifters. Now that X-Men 97 has finally been given some love to Morph, the obvious questions about his shapeshifting abilities are beginning to rise up. Initially a very underrated character, Morph is now easily one of the goofiest and funniest mutants on the team, and originally first became popular in the OG X-Men animated series before making his mark in the latest sequel show. While shapeshifters are fairly common, Mystique is actually a very famous shapeshifting mutant in the X-Men lore, especially due to her existence in the live-action films, unlike Morph. In fact, Mystique's character is returning to the big screen through Rebecca Romijn in MCU'S Avengers Doomsday, coming out soon. Having said that, X-Men enthusiasts have always debated over Morph and Mystique, as they often seem to share many similar abilities. But even if both of them can shapeshift into anything or anyone they want, these two mutants still have a lot of important distinctions when it comes to their abilities. So let's settle the debate once and for all as we discuss some of the major differences between Morph and Mystique's powers. It's going to be a good one, so let's get right into it. The details of Morph's shape-shifting abilities are a little different compared to Mystique. When you're an assassin like Raven Darkholm, aka Mystique, shapeshifting is definitely a powerful ability. Since Fox's Marvel movies, Mystique has been famous for being able to mimic just about anyone to get where she wants to go. Compared to her, Morph was really only a part of the X-Men in the Age of Apocalypse era before he was rescued from that reality to join the Exiles. Since then, he's been jaunting around various alternate realities to join different versions of the X-Men in the multiverse. More recently, with X-Men 97 picking back up, Morph is proving to be a much more prominent character, as the series has been showing us the full extent of his mutant powers as he keeps transforming into other well-known Marvel characters, and it's always a pretty cool cameo when he does. So far, Morph's most iconic transformations have been Blob, Quicksilver, Psylocke, Deadpool, and Spider-Man, and not just that, we've also seen him as Thor and the Incredible Hulk. Unlike Mystique, whose transformations are mostly cosmetic, Morph kinda leans towards the Omnimorph side. This basically means that while Mystique can shapeshift by changing her appearance and voice, Morph can allow his shapeshifting to fully alter and reshape his molecular structure so he can mimic the physical features and powers of other heroes. At least to a certain extent. We've seen Morph manifest Magic's Soul Sword, Spider-Man's web shooters, Quicksilver's super speed, Psylocke's psychic blades, Lady Deathstrike's claws, Angel's wings, and even Thor's hammer during a battle. Of course, that doesn't mean that Morph's abilities don't have limits, and he can't just replicate more powers within him during his transformations, which is why Morph's iteration of Thor's hammer was really just a normal physical construct and wasn't imbued with the typical Asgardian power. Having said that, the biggest difference is how Morph uses his abilities in a much more humorous way than Mystique, who's really not too big on entertainment. Even though she'll always be one of Marvel's most iconic undercover mutant agents, Mystique is still not as physically oriented in her shapeshifting abilities as Morph. Mystique just wears the shape, while Morph rebuilds the very cells of his body. I know many of you are thinking, what if Morph transformed into the Hulk? Would that allow him the same strength as the Green Giant? Well, even if most shapeshifters can't do that, Morph actually can replicate the Hulk's powers to a certain extent. Compared to that, Mystique can only look exactly like the person she's trying to shapeshift into, and in that process, she changes her face, her voice, and her height. In fact, she can even grow claws like Wolverine, but instead of adamantium, they'd be made out of her very own flesh. However, Mystique wouldn't be able to toss cars like the Hulk, as she's not rebuilding her body during her transformations. While Mystique simply wears the shape, Morph is actually rebuilding his cells to replicate whoever he shapeshifts into, which means anything that lives in the body comes with it, be it strength, claws, metal skin, or wings. But Morph's powers also have their limits. Just because he can copy someone's physical appearance doesn't mean he automatically gets all their superpowers. Take the Hulk, for example. His incredible strength comes from his massive muscles, but when Morph transforms into Hulk's body, he recreates that muscular build, so the strength comes with it. However, transforming into Cyclops is a completely different story, as his optic blasts aren't tied to the shape of his eyes. They're actually powered by a portal to another dimension that's controlled through his eyes and visor. So, in that sense, Morph can perfectly copy Cyclops' face, but he can't recreate that portal, which means there's no optic blast. And when Morph shapeshifts into Wolverine, he can grow claws that look just like Logan's, but like Mystique, they're technically made from his own flesh. He can't exactly create adamantium out of thin air, so if those claws were supposed to be coated in the indestructible metal, they simply wouldn't have that durability and could easily snap. Morph's power is really about copying a person's physical form, not the true source of what makes their powers work. Unlike Morph, Mystique has gone through many power upgrades throughout her life. We can all agree that Mystique is one of Marvel's most iconic shapeshifters. I mean, forget about copying someone's appearance or voice. She can copy their fingerprints and retinas in an instant, thus making her one of the greatest spies in the Marvel Universe. She's also been alive for an incredibly long time, having been around since at least the 19th century. In one of Marvel's more surprising reveals, Mystique even spent time solving crimes under the alias of Sherlock Holmes, and yeah, that's comic book canon, baby. Anyways, along with her shapeshifting, Mystique is a highly skilled fighter, infiltrator, and master manipulator, but initially her powers were mostly limited to just changing her appearance. That changed in X-Men Forever issue 6, where Mystique was exposed to a rare form of radiation that ended up enhancing her abilities. The transformation also left her looking noticeably more reptilian, and many fans have compared this redesign to her popular appearance in the live-action X-Men films released around the same time. She again received another major power upgrade in Wolverine number 300 after being resurrected by the mystical ninja clan known as the Hand. This resurrection pushed her shapeshifting well beyond its previous limits, as she could now mimic people so perfectly that she was even able to fool Wolverine's famously sharp sense of smell. Even so, Marvel made one limitation very clear, and that's that Mystique still can't copy the X gene, meaning she can imitate a mutant's appearance but not their superpowers. Her shapeshifting also has physical limits, as she can't create or destroy mass. This basically means that if Mystique transforms into someone much smaller, she'll still weigh about the same as her normal body, and if she becomes someone significantly larger, that larger form won't be as strong because it has to work with the same amount of mass. Mystique has also shown that she can reshape her body in far more creative ways than simply becoming another person. In Mystique issue 5, she forms extra limbs and even grows a second face on the back of her head to give herself a wider field of vision. However, maintaining these more extreme transformations puts a heavy strain on her body. Plus, one of the more unusual side effects of her powers is that telepaths have an extremely difficult time reading her mind. Because her biology is constantly shifting, even someone as powerful as Professor Charles Xavier struggles to scan her thoughts reliably, thus making her an even more effective undercover operative. Moreover, over the years, Mystique has become so familiar with her own unique physiology that she can consciously move her internal organs around inside her body. This allows her to avoid otherwise fatal injuries by shifting vital organs out of harm's way before an attack lands. How cool is that? Unlike Mystique, Morph can fly naturally and has no natural scent. When X-Men the Animated Series debuted in 1992, right when the X-Men were at the peak of their popularity, one of the biggest surprises was Morph. Although he was inspired by the comic book character Changeling, who had died early in the original series, the animated version quickly became a fan favorite because of his quirky humor and personality. As we previously mentioned, Morph's comic book counterpart really got a chance to shine during the 1995 Age of Apocalypse storyline, when people got the chance to see just how versatile his power set could be. He wasn't just copying people's appearances, but perfectly imitating every detail about them. Unlike Mystique, whose shapeshifting has traditionally been limited by her body mass, Morph has never seemed to be restricted in that same way. In Age of Apocalypse, he even transforms into a giant sperm whale, and not just by matching its appearance, but also its biology. The transformation is so complete that, much like the story of Jonah, he carries several teammates inside his enormous mouth. Some of those comic book abilities have also popped up in X-Men 97, like the time Morph transformed into Angel and used his wings to catch a falling teammate. That only worked because, in the comics, Morph could actually fly through psionic means. In fact, his powers go beyond simple shapeshifting because Morph can also copy certain physical traits along with the abilities that naturally come with them. Like if he transforms his arms into those of the Thing, he gains the character's incredible strength as well. Mystique, by comparison, can duplicate the look of Angel's wings, but they wouldn't actually let her fly because she's not copying the underlying ability. Another advantage Morph has is that his transformations leave him without a natural scent, making it almost impossible for trackers like Wolverine or Sabretooth to identify him via smell. While Mystique can now disguise her scent in the comics, that only became possible after receiving a major power upgrade that we previously mentioned. That said, the animated version of Morph doesn't appear to be quite as powerful as his comic book counterpart. In the original X-Men the Animated Series, Wolverine was able to see through Morph's disguise as Professor X simply by recognizing his scent, thus suggesting that his animated powers had more limitations. Even in the latest episode, we see Morph use his full molecular shapeshifting in order to adapt to intense horror-like battles against the Brood. In the 5th episode of X-Men 97, we see Morph transform into Sasquatch, Puck, Guardian, The Thing, Spider-Man, Deadpool, Silver Samurai, Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Vindicator to fight these alien insectoids, but even then, he needs rescuing from Lady Deathstrike at one point. Even when you compare their full comic book power sets, Morph's shapeshifting is generally far more versatile than Mystique's. While Mystique remains the superior infiltrator and spy, Morph's ability to alter his physiology and replicate many physical attributes gives him a broader range of transformations. Mystique would still win in a fight against Morph. We know Morph can't manipulate the weather or develop mind control abilities because his powers only allow him to replicate physical attributes. Meanwhile, Mystique channels her abilities towards deception and covert intelligence work instead. She's very much a spy and a deceiver, so naturally, their contrasting approaches also extend to how each character thinks about combat. Morph is less about using his power set for clandestine operations. It's more to expand his fighting style, as Morph treats his transformations as offensive weapons rather than tools for subterfuge. But if you're talking about who would actually win in a fight, the answer isn't as straightforward as comparing their shapeshifting abilities. Mystique has one major advantage that Morph can't match, which is experience. After decades of missions as an assassin, spy, and mercenary, she's become one of Marvel's best hand-to-hand fighters. Morph, on the other hand, has always relied more on the versatility of his transformations rather than mastering close-quarters combat. That experience could make all the difference because Mystique is skilled enough to adapt to Morph's constantly changing forms and look for ways to turn his own abilities against him. If Morph transformed into something enormous, like a whale, she could simply flatten her body to avoid being crushed. If he relied on speed and agility, she could use weapons and precise strikes to exploit openings instead of trying to overpower him. Not only that, she's also incredibly difficult to put down, and because of her deep understanding of her own shape-shifting physiology, Mystique can move vital organs out of harm's way, making potentially fatal attacks far less effective. This means that landing a decisive blow against her would be much harder than it seems, and it's surely a fascinating matchup because both of these characters can constantly change the battlefield with their powers. Morph has the edge when it comes to the sheer versatility of his transformations, allowing him to change his size, adapt to different environments, and mimic a wide range of physical traits, but Mystique's combat skill, tactical thinking, and centuries of experience means she can still find ways to overcome those advantages. In other words, while Morph may have more powerful shapeshifting abilities, that alone doesn't secure the win. In a straight fight, Mystique's experience and fighting instincts could make the outcome much closer than any of us might expect. That said, this is comic books we're talking about, so power scaling be damned, the winner is whoever the writers need to win. And with that, we've come to the very end of our video. Looking forward, it feels like only a matter of time before X-Men 97 brings Marvel's two greatest shapeshifters face to face. Whether it ends in an all-out brawl or just a tense game of deception, seeing Morph and Mystique interact would surely be a lot of fun. Imagine both of them using their powers to impersonate different people without realizing they're trying to fool another shapeshifter. The possibilities are endless. Even though Mystique has not officially appeared in X-Men 97 yet, one of the biggest fan theories is that she's been hiding in plain sight all along by posing as Valerie Cooper. The theory has some solid comic book backing since Mystique once impersonated Cooper for an extended period in the comics. It would also explain some of Cooper's more dodgy moments throughout the Revival series, although Marvel hasn't confirmed any of this. And not just that, there's another interesting connection as well, because in the original X-Men the Animated Series, Mystique briefly served Apocalypse. If X-Men 97 follows a similar path, especially with Season 2 placing so much emphasis on Ensaba Noor's character, it wouldn't be surprising if she eventually aligned herself with him once more. Whenever Mystique finally enters the series, a showdown with Morph feels almost inevitable at this point, and that might finally settle the debate over who's Marvel's ultimate shapeshifter. On paper, Morph has the edge when it comes to sheer versatility and the number of transformations he can pull off, but Mystique brings something different to the table. She's far more calculating, has centuries of experience manipulating allies and enemies alike, and knows how to turn even the smallest advantage in her favor. If these two ever cross paths, it wouldn't just be a battle of powers, but a battle of strategy, deception, and adaptability. But that's just my 2 cents. What do you guys think? Let us know your thoughts and theories in the comments section down below.